we see one person's name on the screen as participants. So when I ask a question, allow whoever is present with you to also answer the question. So for instance, if Irene is with somebody and I ask Irene, you may answer, but if the person who is with you also wants to say something, please allow them to speak as well. I found that out in the past week. So this session is going to be called Finding My Way To. And like I said, we are going to spend time going through the experience we have had since we started this program, because this is almost the apex of the course, and we need to make sure that we are on track now. Otherwise, it's very easy to lose out people. And that's why I have not been admitting new people in the program. I only admit new people in the first 2 weeks, and after that, I don't, because I know that it's hard to catch up with what we have learned. So who remembers what we talked about Sir Isaac Newton's law of inertia last week? Let's start with physics today. What did we say and apply it to our daily lives? Anyone who remembers, unmute yourself and tell us what you remember. Are we still there? What did we say about inertia last week?
Can I go?
Yes, Provia, you can go.
What I remember about the law of inertia is the other bad example which you gave, where some two decided to fly over and one didn't have any thought, and you asked us how many actually flew away. And the lesson from that was decision alone is not enough to build up or to take me to where I would want to be, but actually taking my decision into action is what is most important for me to get where I would want to be.
Absolutely, that's correct. Does anyone have anything else to add to that? If not, let's go with that. So Provia is absolutely right. We agreed that it's very good, it's a very nice thing to make a decision, to change, to make a decision to do something. But if you stop at decision, you're not very different from someone who did not make any decision at all. We need to make a decision, but on top of that, we need to take action. And we looked at this, this cycle that we have here. We talked about identifying the loop. Then we talked about, so after we identified the loop, we said we think about the possible solutions and we write them down. We take advantage of the visual aspect, which is writing down. And then we make a decision to take action, but that is not enough. We take action. And after we've taken action, like I believe many of you have experienced over these few weeks, once you take action, you realize that there is actually more. There are still more open loops that are present. So you still continue making this list of solutions, taking the decision and taking action. And we said inertia was one of the biggest. The dream killers cause inertia. And we said, Sir Isaac Newton said that objects remain in the state that they are unless something changes. If an object is moving, it will continue moving forever unless something that is external stops it. If something is not moving, it will remain not moving until something moves it. And we said it's the same with us. If you don't take action, you're going to remain on the same path that you were. You will still be procrastinating. You will still be performing poorly. Things will not change if you do not actually take action. Okay. And then we had homework about dream killers. I asked you to go back and spend this week at identifying what are those things that are keeping you from taking action, that are killing your dream. People said in the first meeting we had, some people said they wanted to be senior accountants after 10 years. Others said they wanted to be essentially ruling the world after 10 years. The question is now, there are things that are stopping you from taking action. We looked at our wheel of life 2 weeks ago, areas in our lives where we think are important, but we are not doing as well as we thought we would be doing. And we talked about last week that there are things that we call dream killers. So I want a few volunteers to tell us, what did you discover that you know deep inside you is holding you back from doing what is important? So the dream killer that is keeping your loop open. So I want us to use this template. You see this template here? My dash is keeping me from dash. So this is where you mentioned the dream killer. An example is this. Someone shared this example with us last week at this meeting. She said, my fear of having been out of work for a long time is keeping me from trying to apply for a job. So can I have some volunteers? What did you find that are some of the things that are holding you back? Feel free to share. Remember, we mentioned things like could be your fear of failure, your fear of succeeding. It could be a bad experience you've had in the past. You tried and you had failed already. Things that people told you about yourself in the past, things that happened to you. So have you been able to discover any that you're willing to share with us? Just one. This was part of homework, so I know you've had some time to think about it. Bridget, you're welcome. Anyone willing to share their experience, what they found?
Actually, when I was trying to do these exercises, I will put 3 stages. Like there is, instead of, so my it was actually like I'm so involved in so many things. You go here, you do this, you do the other one.
Yes.
So instead of like focusing on a few things that are most important. So and when people ask me to join their maybe the groups to do this, to help them here, I'm afraid to say no, or like I don't know when to say no or yes. Like I will say okay, yes, let's do, but then you find you're so involved in so many small many things that sometimes don't even count.
Right.
So maybe my fear of saying no is keeping me is keeping me doing so many things that are driving me away from doing things that are most important to me.
Okay, that's a good realization, you know, because it's nice when you've actually visualized it. Now you see that the problem is you find it hard to say no. And because you're finding it hard to say no, you're not doing things that are important to you. You're making everybody else seem more important than yourself, and you're doing their things. In the meantime, no one is doing your things. You see the point, right?
Yes.
Exactly. So that is a good finding. So you're solving everyone's issues. You're being there to do person while no one is doing your things. And the reason for that is fear of saying no.
And maybe in addition to that, because you're doing so many things, so you don't do them perfectly or excellently. You may do this a quarter way, halfway, you go here, and then that's why I found like I maybe don't keep up some timelines, and also procrastination, because you're doing very, very many things.
Right. Okay, that's a good point. And I'll ask you this question. I don't know if you've had time to think about it. Why do you fear to say no? Have you asked yourself that question? Why are you afraid to say no when people ask you for your time or to do things for them?
So like for some of the things, like maybe like for my friends, they have helped me in maybe in my past projects or some things. Then now when they ask me back, even if it's not my area of interest, I'm like, no, if I say no, what this this person say, I'm being rude or being impolite or being inconsiderate. Then like from work, like for some of my supervisors, they will tell you to do some things and you are afraid to say no because it might be an indicator for your performance.
So that's a good question. So you heard the words you've used. It might be, they may say. So is it a Exactly. So you need to ask yourself those questions, because in life, people are going to need you all the time. And the more you keep saying yes, the more people are going to ask you. And then, like you said, you find you're not doing it to the best of your ability. And so you create a reputation. They say, you know, Probia she's not good at what she does. So you need to ask yourself these questions. What does it mean for you in the long term? But we'll come to that. Does anyone else want to share any dream killers they discovered? So those who have joined us late today, we are going to spend quite a bit of time going through the homework we did last week, because I know the concepts that I brought, they were quite multiple, and also they really needed you to think about yourself and to go deep within yourself. So Anyone else? Once again, those who are listening with siblings, if you're not ready to say something, you can let your siblings speak as well. Irene, what did you find out?
Okay, one of the dream killers is our spouses. Sometimes you want to do something, maybe you want to look for a job and your spouse thinks you need to start a business. So when you're not on the same page with your spouse, it can prevent you from advancing. Yes.
Okay, Irene, thank you for bringing that concept, that perspective in. But so you ask yourself, is it your spouse or what you think they will say if you want to do something else?
Sometimes it's actually your spouse who gives you his opinion. When you place your plan, future plan to him, and he thinks, no, I think you should be doing this instead of that. And that's a dream killer.
And we find that
to hold you back.
Right, we find that to be a dream killer. And for those who are not married on this forum, especially younger people who are in school, so what Irene is sharing is similar to what students tell me sometimes. They're like, you know, my parents won't allow me to do what I want to do. I want to be, let's say, a musician in future. I want to be an accountant, but my parents say I have to do sciences. So at this moment, you feel like they're a dream killer. What did we talk about that in the first session? Does anyone remember? Anyone remember? Okay, I'll remind you. So remember we said the thing that in your mind you believe that you want to be, the place you want to be in 10, 15 years time from now, remains an open loop in your mind, provided you don't act on it. If you're in a situation now when you cannot directly act on it, we said, pace yourself, right? Your spouse or your parent may want you to do something now, but tell yourself, fine, I will do this, but towards my dream, that thing I want to do 15 years from now, this is what I can start doing. If your idea, like Irene said, is a business, even if you're not starting the business today, what are you going to do in the next 1 year towards that business you hope to start one day? Are you finding out more about that business? Are you reading more about it? Are you talking to people who are already in that business? In other words, there are things that you can still do towards that long-term goal in spite of not being able to implement the whole goal right now. So let's not allow external things to hold us back. For instance, we talked about last week, the chances that 10 years from now, there will be another condition like COVID or something that will stop the world is possible. But just knowing that it is possible, especially us who have lived through this COVID season, we now know that it is possible. Just knowing that it is possible should not stop you from planning for what you be many years, what you want many years down the road. In other words, pace yourself. Irene, that business that you want to have, that idea should not die out of your mind. Think about the way you want that business to be 10, 15 years from now, and ask yourself, even as I'm doing this family business that my spouse prefers me to do, what am I doing towards that 15-year goal that I have? Have a plan for that and actually begin to implement the plan now. Speak to people in that area, read about that area, find out, so begin to do something now towards that goal. I don't know if that makes sense. Do you have any question in that area for clarification?
It makes sense. Yes,
and
thank you.
You're welcome. And that is the same for students. There's a person that I know who went to medical school, and his plan, he actually wanted to be an accountant. But in the family, the parents said, in our family, we only do doctors. So he went to medical school, and as he was studying in medical school, he was finding out how someone could be an accountant. So when he finished medical school, he did his internship, he went back to school. And so now he had fulfilled what the parents had asked him to do, because being a child in the family, he couldn't do otherwise. But he had found out in the meantime what it takes to be the accountant that he wanted to be. So as soon as he finished internship, he didn't even miss a beat. Immediately, he went back through the right channels, and now he's working in the bank. So you need to be able to, even if the dream is out of your hold right now, begin to work a path towards that. Because they say opportunity works with people who are ready. So when the opportunity comes and doesn't find you ready, then you will miss that boat. But if it finds that you had prepared yourself, then it is easy to get into that opportunity. Anyone else who wants to share any dream killers they found? One more person? Should I pick at random? Moshe, did you find any dream killers that you can share with us? Moshe?
I think laziness is a dream killer.
What is it keeping you from doing?
From doing the work that I'm supposed to do.
So so I asked that intentionally because you may identify something that you think is a dream killer, but if if you don't see it affecting you in any way, then probably it is not, you know. But if it is affecting you in one way or another, then maybe it is. Someone mentioned to me some time ago and said her problem was waking up early in the morning, and she felt that was holding her back. But when we talked through it, this person said, you know, I'm able to do everything else, even when I wake up a little later, and I work really well late in the day. And then the point was maybe then it is not a dream killer because you're able to do everything else that you need to do with the time that you have. So it's really important to find out if you think it is a dream killer, is it actually in the path of you doing what you need to do? If it is in the path, and that is why I say do it for every area in your wheel of life. In every single area, is it blocking you from obtaining or doing anything? If it is not, then maybe it is just an inconvenience that is present in your life. I hope that makes it clear. The next question that I will ask, and I keep asking in this program is, what have you done about the dream killers you identified since we started this program? Because once again, this is an action-oriented program. It's not just a feel-good type of meeting. We need to be able to implement the things that we have begun to learn. And that's why we have things like the habit developer tool that we use. We have the wheel of life with immediate actions. We have the short-term planning, the long-term planning, because I want you to begin to do, to actually begin to act. Because if we don't, then when we close this program, you will be at the point of decision, which is what we don't want to happen. Can anyone share with us what they have done so far with any dream killers they have identified? What actual action have you taken? Any actions that you have actually taken to begin to fight a dream killer that you have identified? Simonette?
Dream killers. Dream killer.
What daddy? Is that daddy?
If you're not speaking, please make sure you're muted.
You're not too sure.
Anyone wants to share?
Maybe I can share mine.
Yes, please go ahead.
Because I have so many assignments to me, so one thing I used to like work during the day like only. So I've tried to adjust the time, wake up early in the morning, and also extend a bit late into the night to do some of the tasks. But now I'm identifying some of the projects or some of the things that I was into that are not meaningful to me or to my priorities, and some of which are breaking me. So like for some, I'm a chapter representative for some chapter for the Eco Health, if you have heard of it, in Uganda. Yes. So and I have some other things that I'm doing within that organization. So I'm letting some of the positions go for other people to contest for them, so that I have much time for myself to do work, and I'm about to start school again, so that I have also time for school. Then for some of the things, I don't know that I'm doing it the right way. I'm ignoring until, and I'm ignoring some of the projects people had fitted me into. And when they reach out to me, I plan to explain to them how I don't have time for that.
Okay.
But I've not really given them that concrete feedback that I'm unable to. I'm just waiting for them to reach out to me, and I'll let them know.
Okay. So I want to ask the people who are here. Probably thank you for that input, but I'm going to start with the last one. You've identified that there are things that you shouldn't be doing and you're ignoring them, but you're waiting for the people to reach out to you for you to explain to them. What does that do to your mind? I want someone to answer. What do you think that is doing to Provia's mind? To her primitive brain. Remember, we talked about that in the first session. What do you think it's doing in there? John, what do you think is happening? Brenda?
Just re-explain. I haven't understood.
Oh, let's have Brenda answer, then I'll try to re-explain it. Yes,
Okay.
Brenda?
I think it keeps on reminding her that she has unfinished business. There's a task that is incomplete.
Absolutely, and that is it. So probably I know 100% that in your mind, this thing, it keeps running in your mind. You're actually waiting for these guys to get in touch with you. You're not forgetting that you have an assignment that you have decided to ignore. So your loop is actually open. What I would advise you to do based on what I would do is I would call up these people or write to them and explain to them that you apologize, you're unable to complete this task either immediately, or either you're not going to be able to do it at all and you are really sorry for that, or if they can wait until a later date, which date you give them, then you will do it at that time. You need to be able to take control. We've talked about control. Don't allow other people to control you, take control. But one thing that I've heard you say, and I believe that it's something we have talked about here as well, is as you have begun to list your priorities, you've looked at your wheel of life, looked at what is important, identified your big rocks. You're beginning to identify that there are things you're doing that actually are not part of what is important in your life. And this is really important to note, because when we are just living life at large, we don't know what is important, then we end up taking on so many responsibilities. Those of us who are in workplaces who are now career people, we know of people who they never take on extra responsibility. You know that they're a good leader, but they're asking who wants to be the chair of this committee, and they sit quietly. And you're wondering, you're trying to volunteer them, they're saying no without any explanation. It's not because they are unable to do it, but it's because they have priorities. There are things they can say yes to because it is in their path of priority, and there are things they will always say no to. And I do that a lot as well. I accept certain things, and there are things I will absolutely not allow. But if you don't have your priorities aligned, then everything, you'll be like, oh, I can lead that, I will do it. I can be the secretary, I will do it. I can be, so you end up being everywhere. Your time is spread thin doing things for other people, and you don't have time to do things that are a priority for yourself because you don't know what these priorities are. And then you're wondering why you're not sleeping well, but it's because your mind knows what you need to be focusing on. So thank you, Provia, for sharing. So what is really important is that we actually take action. I hope everyone has taken action. If you've identified the dream killer, please begin to take action towards either minimizing it or getting rid of it. So the next session is going to be also a little bit of a recap of what we did last week, overcoming dream killers. The first step to overcoming dream killers is action. Like I already said, you need to take action. But like we said, we don't act on everything. We need to know the things we're going to act on and the things that we're not going to act on. So just a review of the homework again. I asked you last week to go through the actions that you had created. We had created actions on the first week, our 1 month action towards the goals, our life goals. And then the 2 weeks ago, I asked you to look at your wheel of life and create immediate actions for each of the slices. And then last week, I asked you to go back and look at those actions and to class them according to whether they are in your area of control, your circle of influence, or your circle of concern. What was your experience? Can I have 2 people sharing their experience? John, do you want to share your experience? What did you find? Joanita?
I found that in my circle of control, I had my habits, like my daily habits, like when I wake up, or my timetable, or how I set to do my things, because sometimes you could wake up and say, I'm going to do this and this and that, and then I end up saying, oh, I have tomorrow, I can do it tomorrow. Then the week ends and you haven't really done much.
Right.
So I found that I had that under my control, and also the excuses that, oh, I have work, I can't do this. But then you find that you actually have the time. If you make time for it, you could accomplish it. In my circle of influence, I think I realized that I had the friends, does that work? Like the friends that you surround yourself with, because I realized that some people that you surround yourself with are just taking from you and not really giving to me. Like I'm spending so much of my effort to give to them, but they are not reciprocating that back. So you spend so much of your time doing things for them that they're not really adding it that I expect them to, but I don't know, they're not really adding. They only expect you to give when they reach out when they want something like that. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. Can we just let's hold that thought for a moment and bring it back to everyone else who is in this section. So in terms of the friends that we surround ourselves with, I like that statement, we are surrounding ourselves with them. Where do we think they fall in these three circles? Where would you place the friends you surround yourself with? Paula, where would you place them? Which circle do they fall in?
I think they fall in the circle of influence.
Circle of influence, okay. Anybody else? Where do you think they fall? So John and Paula say circle of influence. Anyone else? Bridget, what do you think? Where do they fall? Bridget? Paula, where do you think they fall? It's Paula who said area of influence, right? Irene, where do you think they fall?
I think they fall in the circle of influence.
Circle of influence.
Yes.
Can I surprise you? Friends are in our circle of control. Does anyone force you to make friends with somebody? Just think about it. We all choose our friends, don't we? There is no situation where you're like, you know what, this person is my friend because they made us friends. We choose our friends. Things that we choose are actually within our circle of control. Friends, you can decide whether to remain friends with them or not to remain friends with them. But sometimes because we forget that we actually have this control, we end up saddling ourselves for life with people who are just, like Joan said, draining from us. They are taking from us. We forget that we actually have control. Just because you had met someone, your friend in the past, and now they are draining you, doesn't mean you do not have the choice to end the friendship. And ending friendships are easier than, especially friendships that are not beneficial. You'll be surprised at how easy they are. Because if these are people who are taking from you, as soon as you learn, probably I hope you're listening, as soon as you learn to say no, these people are going to disappear. Because their presence in your life was determined by what they could get from you. So we choose our friends, and that is in our area of control. But how our friends, what our friends think about us is in our circle of influence. Okay? What we can get our friends to do for us is in our circle of influence. You cannot get your friend to tell your friend that because I helped you the other time, you have to help me this time. That is in your circle of influence. Many of us know people that we have helped when they were in need, but now that we need help, they choose not to help us because choice is in their circle of control, and our influence of them, what we can make them do or not do is in our circle of influence. I hope that is clear. So your choice of friends is something you can control. The choice of people you surround yourself with is something that you can control. For those of us who are married, the choice of our spouses, unless you had an arranged marriage, that was a choice that we made. But after we've made that choice, what they do is in our circle of influence. You cannot control them because they are another whole human being, but you chose to have them in your life. I hope that makes it clear. I hope that's, any questions? concerning that? If there's no question, John, did you want to continue?
All right, with the circle of concern, I found that my actions that I do to accomplish things, I don't know if that makes sense. Like if like my goals, or like at work, my finishing work in time, the pressures that you get with deadlines and all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone wants to respond to that, to Joanne's last statement about her circle of concern, what she found was in her circle of concern? Anybody? Probia, do you have anything to say about that?
Oh, I
Oh,
just
and
stepped
also,
out. I didn't hear.
Okay,
I didn't
John?
hear what she said.
Okay,
and
John?
also,
Yes?
and also I was going to say another thing that was in my circle of concern that I found is that being young, you have so much pressure to do things, like to become successful, to get your life in order, and sort of like you comparing yourself to your classmates and how far they are and how far you are, and the everyone around you is like you finish school, what next? So yeah, I think that was another thing in my circle of concern.
Or the circle of concern. Okay, so I'll just jump in. So one of the things you said is that you feel pressure from deadlines, and you place that in your circle of concern. This is what I have experienced from being in the workplace for a while. There are deadlines that are in your area of concern. You can do nothing about it. They are set, and that is it. But you'll be surprised that there are deadlines that you can actually request to be moved. But most of us we don't realize that we can influence some of these things. You know, they've given you a deadline, and you, like Probia was telling us earlier on, sometimes she's afraid of what the bosses will say if she says no. But sometimes you can say, you know, this is what I'm working on right now. Can I get some more time? Let's move the deadline from this week to next week. But the problem that we have, most of us, I believe, I don't know if it's a cultural thing in this country, we are so afraid to ask. And yet when you ask, the worst that someone can do is to say no. And if they say no, then you know that, okay, that now goes purely in my circle of concern. I need to reorganize myself to get it done. Next week, we're going to look at the quadrants of time management and how to react to things like this. But so not all deadlines are in your circle of concern. If the deadline is fixed, for instance, like it has to, let's say Christmas Day is 25th of December, you cannot postpone that. So you have to change whatever you're doing to fit that day. But if there are things that are movable, you know, if it is let's say a grant deadline, you are writing a proposal, or the exams, people who are students, if they say exam starts on the 30th of September, you can't change that. It is not within your control. But then there are other deadlines that you can actually request and have change. So that comes into your circle of influence. And the reason why I'm bringing this is to let you understand why I said when you are looking at your actions and classifying them, go through every slice of your life. Because in some areas of your life, you have influence over deadlines. In some areas of your life, you can actually control the deadline. For instance, if you said, let's say in your circle of control, you're trying to begin saving money. Let's say I decided I need to be saving 50,000 shillings every month. You have set the deadline yourself. You can actually control that deadline. If there's an emergency that happened, let's say you fell sick or someone in your family fell sick and you had to spend more than you had thought you would spend this month, you cannot stress yourself over that deadline that you had set, that by 30th of August, I should have saved 50,000 shillings, because you are in control of that deadline. Then you go on to the next thing. You look at, go to the next slice of your life, and you find that you can actually influence those deadlines, you know? Your children said, if you're those who are parents, they said they wanted to go visiting grandma or grandpa on the 16th of September. you can actually influence that deadline. You know, you talk to them and say, you know, because of A, B, C, and D, can we move the date to another date? Those who are at work, you can talk to your boss, talk to your colleagues. Because this work requires A, B, C, and D, more work than they thought it would, or because there are other priorities, can we move this deadline? Now, while the same thing is still deadlines, in that field, it is in your circle of influence. Then there are deadlines which are within your circle of concern. The boss, the main funder says you have to submit the report by this date. Some of those dates cannot be changed. Or what else? So example, for instance, the COVID vaccine, they say we won't go back to school until the COVID vaccine is found. That is a deadline that has been set. You have nothing to do about it. You cannot control it. So that is why I want you, when you're looking at each of these things, to look at it in every different slice of your life, because your ability to react to it or to control it varies depending on what you are looking at. So Joan, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing with us your experience. The other thing you talked about is the pressure of achieving, especially and it doesn't only happen for those who are young, even us who are older, we still have those pressures, external pressures. But you ask yourself, are these things that you can control, or are these things that are within your area of concern? Once you start comparing yourself with somebody else, then you are getting into an area of concern, because you cannot control the way I progress in my career. You cannot control the way when your friend meets and gets married to somebody. You cannot control when they decide to buy a car. But if you're going to spend your life being pressured because of that, then you're spending a lot of time in your circle of concern. Remember, last week we said our objective should be to minimize the circle of concern to almost zero. So let's always look at the actions that we've set in place. Have we set them because we are being pushed by things in our circle of concern? Because for as long as you're motivated by your circle of concern, you're never going to achieve what you're looking to achieve. Is there any question before we go on? Or anyone else who wants to share their experience with the homework? If not, let's move on. So I need everybody to ask themselves this question during your quiet time. Am I focusing my energy in this area? What others say about me, the past mistakes I have made, things that have happened to me in the past. Last week we said there are people who may have even been sexually abused, people who were insulted, people who had negative words spoken into their lives. And we agreed those are things that have already happened and the past is in the past. Am I spending my time focused on those things that I can't do anything about? Things that I have to do. And things that you have to do, you believe me or not, are actually in your area of concern. Young people, if your parents have told you that you have to do the dishes, or they have told you you have to do sciences, you have explained and whatever they've refused, then it is something you have to do. Instead of focusing your time complaining about that, take action. What can I do now that this is something that I have to do? If a deadline cannot be changed, you can't spend your time worrying about this deadline anymore. Decide what actions am I going to take to be able to overcome this deadline. Worrying about what people think about me, about the weather, about whether I'm going to be sick or somebody is going to be sick or someone is going to die. So those are things that we should not be focusing our energies on. And I need everyone to look at yourself, where am I focusing my energies? At the end of the day, just sit down and think about it. Was I complaining about the workplace today, complaining about the teachers? How much time did I spend complaining about COVID and the government and talking about Kim Kardashian or whatever celebrities out there? I don't know if they're still popular anyway, but ask yourself, how much of my energy have I spent in those areas? If there's no question, I will continue. The other thing I want you to ask yourselves is, do I really even know how much control I actually have? We have a lot of control, but we actually are not aware of how much control we have. And when Joan was generous to share the way she had categorized her things in the area of control, influence, and concern, we realized that there are things that she had put in her area of influence and concern that actually she has control over. But many times we forget or we don't realize how much control we have. These are just a few examples. We have control over our behavior. Many times we blame people for the way we react. She made me do this. The teacher made me do this. My boss made me do this. My husband made me do this. My wife made me do this. So we complain, we blame our behavior on external things, and yet we are fully in control of our own behaviors. We talked about being proactive and being reactive. My goals, the goals that I set, many times because we didn't know better, we blame people for preventing us from setting the goals that we want in our lives. We blame our teachers. Irene actually looked at a situation where your spouse wants you to do something else, and yet your goal is something else. And so many times we don't set our goals because someone else we feel is blocking us from the goals that we want. And yet goals are actually within our area of control. Even if you're, for instance, students, even if you're in school doing whatever combination we have in Uganda, but you want to be an artist, what are you doing about it right now? You need to set that goal and begin working towards it because it is in your area of control. The amount of effort that you put into something, that is actually within your area of control. How much time are you spending to be better at doing something? To be better at your job, to get a better appraisal, to get a better report in school, to get a better grade? How much effort are you actually putting in that? That is within your area of control. I've heard this common in the workplace where you say, at the end of the day, my to-do list is actually longer than it was in the morning and I haven't done what I wanted to do. The question is that out of your control? How much effort are you putting to either reduce the things that are coming your way or overcoming the things that you have to do? We have control over learning from our mistakes, taking care of ourselves, choosing who our friends are. We've already talked about that. Asking for help. If you feel overwhelmed, who have you asked for help? Those are things within our area of control. And very importantly, we have in our control the ability to be kind. Kindness is the same language that runs throughout the world. Everyone understands the language of kindness. And as God put it, it is within our area of control. Once again, if you have a question, just unmute yourself and ask for anything you want to contribute. So I just want you to take a look at this statement. Some of you may be familiar with it. Can I have someone read this out? Read this for us. Someone please read this aloud for us. Hey guys, Paula, please read this out loud for us.
Choose this day whom you will serve, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua 24, verse 15.
Thank you very much. Why do you think, Paula, before you mute yourself again, why do you think the words that are in bold are in bold? Choose, me, will serve. Why do you think I put them in bold?
Because I think
anyone wants to help her? Provia, why do you think those words are in bold?
Let me try.
Yes?
It's like a conversation between two people. Mm-hmm. So me personally control what I'm willing to do, but I have no control of your choices.
Okay. Thank you. And that is really it. So if you look at the terms of made in bold, choose. Choosing is something that you can control. And so this person who was Joshua was telling the people of Israel, the decision is in your area of control. Even God does not force himself on us. You need to make the decision to choose. And that is within your area of control. And then the word me is the thing, that one thing that you can control is yourself. We will serve, that is action. So know what things are in your area of control. You are in your area of control. Everything you do is within your area of control. You need to make the decision to take control, and that is choose. And when you make the decision, you need to take action. I hope this is really ringing home. We need to take control of our decisions. We need to know what we have control over and what we don't have control over. And the things that we can control, we need to begin to control them. Okay. Last week, we also talked about how to use our control. I didn't say it that way, but that is really what it is, how to use our ability to control. And we look at it in terms of being proactive versus being reactive. So in life, there's always going to be a stimulus. Someone is going to ask you to do something. There's going to be, you're in school, there's a topic you need to learn. You are at work, there's something you need to do. There's always going to be a stimulus, that thing that you need to respond to. So a stimulus is something that is coming at you and you need to respond to it. The question and what makes people different is whether you are reactive or you are proactive. People who are reactive, like you see this thing, they just collide into things. When something happens, that is when they respond. So really, our behavior is molded by what is happening around us. So we allow our moods to take control. I don't feel like doing this, so I won't do it. I don't feel like spending some time looking through my goals today, so I won't do it. I'm not in the mood to do exercise today. I'm not in the mood to be kind. I'm not in the mood to show up at work. So we are allowing circumstances to control the way we react. He has made me annoyed. She makes me really mad. He is a bad teacher. So everything around us is determining the way we react. Those who know about puppets, hand puppets, the ones that they control like that, when you are a reactive person, you actually are a puppet, because everything else is controlling you. If the things stop controlling you, then you can't do anything. So you need to ask yourself as you have your quiet time, am I a reactive or a proactive person? How can you do this? Is by asking yourself, so you sit for your quiet time in the morning and you ask yourself, the things that I did yesterday, what are those things that I did out of my own choice? And what are those things that I did or said because of a stimulus that came to me? Did I say yes simply because I was asked? Or did I give myself time to think about the request? Did I get angry because someone shouted at me? Or did I give myself time to think about what my response should be? The other thing we talked about was proactivity. And when you look at this figure and compare it to the one that you saw before, you will notice that there is a gap, between the stimulus and the response. And that is how we need to be. The question is, how can we be proactive? Pro means before. You're doing things in advance. So in other words, you're thinking about the possible stimuli and thinking about the way you're going to act to them before it actually happens. So you are, for instance, in the workplace, you are thinking already, you know that these are my priorities when I'm at work, or in my life, these are my priorities. We have our wheel of life already. And that is why I say, create your wheel of life and create actions for each of the areas. Because if you already have actions for all of those areas, then your life is already full. You don't have space for any extra things that are coming into your life that are not aligned with your important things, with your priorities. So when a stimulus comes, it may be a request, it may be something negative, even something positive. You stop for a moment, and this circle is not by chance. This is now your wheel of life. Your wheel of life gives you the freedom to choose. Does this stimulus, where does it fall in my wheel of life? Is it even there at all? If you're trying to build a relationship, let's say with your siblings or with your parents, and someone does something to upset you, you ask yourself, what is this stimulus going to do as far as helping me get to 10 in my relationship with my siblings? What is this stimulus going to do as far as increasing the time I have with my spouse or my children? What is this stimulus going to do as far as improving my academic performance? And after you have thought that, and by the way, when you have your wheel of life and you're doing your actions, it doesn't take you a whole hour to think about this. Even seconds, you already know where you fall. And so based on what you have decided, you're going to respond. And as you can see, it takes self-awareness. And by self-awareness, I mean you already know what are the priorities of your life and what you're doing in terms of these priorities. Is this opportunity good for my priorities, or is it bad for my priorities. You're self-aware. The next, it takes imagination. Imagination meaning in your mind, you're always seeing that pizza. Remember the pizza we had the other time? How complete is my pizza? What is this going to contribute? Is it going to reduce a slice of my pizza, or is it going to build it up? My conscience, is this wrong? Is this right? All of us have, I hope all of us do. We need to have a moral compass. What is wrong and what is right? And the moral compass is really important because there are people who are extremely intelligent, and because they're really intelligent and have no moral compass or have the wrong moral compass, are going to do things that are unbelievable. You look at history and look at people like Hitler. Those were really intelligent people. But because they had a skewed moral compass, they thought by killing people of a certain race, they were doing the right thing. Look at our own country here. There are people who are allowed to be paid to kill. We've seen top politicians and police officers being killed, and you wonder, how did these people go to bed at night, these people who did the killing? But it's because their conscience, their moral compass is skewed, or they don't have a moral compass. So you need to ask yourself, what is my moral compass? What is my right and what is my wrong? Those of us in the workplace, we complain when people are stealing billions of shillings, but at the end of the day, you're going home with office stationery. How different are you? What is your conscience telling you? And that helps you make the decision of how to react to a stimulus. When I was, one time I used to work with a very big project. It was a USAID project. And I remember I was quite young at the time, in my 20s, and I had quite a senior position. And I remember someone came to me, a very senior person, and asked me to sign a certain document. So I asked him, why do you want me to sign this document? What is it about? And the person told me that this is a way in which we can make money. It was actually fraudulent money. And I told him that, you know what? That is not, my conscience doesn't allow me to do things like that. And this man, who was really senior, very senior to me, told me, you know what, young lady, you're fake and you're never going to become rich. And that was it. But the question is, what is your moral compass? Because the stimulus is going to come, and if you don't have a moral compass, you're going to make a decision that is also a wrong decision. So you need to ask yourself, who am I? What are the things that I can do and what I cannot do? And then finally, independent will. As human beings, and even the Bible says this, God gives us full independence, of will. You make the decision. And that is why you saw the scripture we shared before. Choose who you will serve. Choose whom you will serve. Choose today. Choosing is about independence. You can choose yes, you can choose no. Probably if someone asks you to do something for them, just because you did something for them in the past doesn't mean you should say yes to everything that they're asking you to do. You have an independent will. Either say, unfortunately, I'm really busy, I cannot do it now, or I will not do it well. Or if you can wait, I will be free a month from now and I can spend some time doing that. You have independent will. No one can make you make a decision. No one can make you choose a friend. No one can make you, whatever it is. So tell yourself, no one can make me do something that I do not want to do. Any question or any input at this point? If there's none, we will proceed. We are running out of time. I thought we would take some time to look at the homework that we did as far as how we scored ourselves in terms of reactivity and proactivity. But please make sure that you have done this assignment. Ask yourself, am I a proactive person? Am I a reactive person? And in the course of every day, let this be an assignment for the next week. Whatever decisions you make or whatever you do, ask yourself, why did I do it? Was I being proactive? Was I being reactive? Did I attend the meeting because I had to attend the meeting? Or did I attend the meeting because I chose to attend the meeting? So this coming week, we're going to be proactive in finding out whether we are proactive or reactive people. So please spend time every day and ask yourself the decisions that I made, the things that I did, the things that I did not do. Did I do them because I was made to do them or because I chose to do them? Did I look at alternatives? Did I react because someone made me angry? Did I control my feelings? So think about that in the course of this week. Okay, So last week I asked you to spend some time doing homework, looking at your superpowers and super tools. Remember when we started this program, we said we are going to do a personal strategic plan, and we actually are doing that. And we talked about what we call the SWOT analysis, your strengths, your weakness, opportunities, and your threats. And I said for the Care 360 program, we prefer to start with the things that are positive. And so we look at our strengths first, which are our superpowers, and then we look at our opportunities, which are our super tools. I just want to draw your attention to these pictures. This picture on the left, the one that I'm circling right now, those who are familiar with superheroes, who like movies and comics with superheroes, these are famous tools that many of the different superheroes use. And when you're looking at your opportunities, look at those things that are external to you that you can use to make yourself better or to leverage yourself towards achieving your goal, whatever action it is you're trying to do. And even the Bible mentions the armor of God. In other words, even God recognizes that we need things that are external to us to help us. So what are these things that are external to you that you're taking advantage of? So once again, I hope you did the homework. If you have listed down your strengths, which are your super tools, ask yourself, how can I make these strengths help me achieve the goals that I want to achieve? If my goal is to get a promotion at work, and you realize that, for instance, you realize that you are a good public speaker, how am I using that strength? How am I using that strength to help me get to the goal that I want to get? And then the opportunities around me, we gave examples of them last week. How am I leveraging them? How am I taking advantage of them? If you want to start a business, you have access to the internet. How are you using the internet to start that business or to boost your business? So think about the tools you have around you and how you can leverage them for your good. So last week we wrote them down. This week we are going to start building on them and taking advantage and leveraging the tools that we have. So those are some of the homeworks you're going to do. The last concept we are going to go through today is what we call the weaknesses and threats. I like calling them the weaknesses are our 30 pieces of silver. Those who are familiar with the Bible, you remember Judas Iscariot. The Bible says more than once that he was a greedy person. He loved money, right? And so our love for money, those things that are internal to us that are negative, are 30 pieces of silver, because his life was destroyed because of his love for money. So we are going to look at what is the weaknesses that we have, and then we are going to look at threats. Threats are the things that are external to us. They're not from within us. Remember, things that are from within you, you can control, and things that are from outside you, you can either influence them or you can do nothing about them. So our threats are things that are external to us, but they are working against us. So quickly, we're going to look at some of them. So in this list, I have created a list of some of the things that you can call your weaknesses. And they are, as you can see, they are multiple. And I'm going to ask you for your homework for each of the slices of your wheel of life, because those are the things that you have decided are your priorities. List down 10 things that are your weaknesses. Here are some examples. I'm aggressive, arrogant, bossy, chaotic, lazy, shy. All those are weaknesses. In other words, there are things that are within you that are keeping you from attaining the goals that you want to attain. The good thing about weaknesses is that we can work on them. We can, because they are within our control, we can actually be proactive in working against them. Other examples of weaknesses, and you need to find these, like for students, you may say, I'm weak in algebra. And then for the rest of us, I'm spending a lot of time on my phone. That is a weakness. Even if the phone is external to you, the decision to spend a lot of time on your phone comes from within you. My space is constantly messy. Why do I bring that up? A messy space actually affects your mind, because your mind sees a mess and it thinks there's a problem that is going on. There are loops that need to be tied up. Then you sometimes we actually don't know what is expected of us. In management, there's actually a term called job ambiguity. For people who are working, you don't really know what is expected of you at work. You're just going there, you do this, you do the other, but you're not sure that that is what is expected. Some of us, even in school, we don't know what is expected of us as a student, or at home, we don't know what is expected of us. Another weakness may be, I don't know how to do something. So you have decided that my goal is, let's say, to build a business. My goal is to those who are students in secondary school, I want to go to the university on government sponsorship. But you may sit down and realize that I don't know how to achieve that goal. What skill is it that you need to achieve that goal? You realize you don't know how to do it. I use excessive social media, internet surfing. I'm always video gaming. I'm always watching series. You know, that is a new problem that is coming up these days. I'm sleeping too much. I'm always hanging out with friends. I shop too much. So those are actually weaknesses. I remember one of my weaknesses many years ago used to be shopping. I used to shop a lot. Clothes, shoes, bags, and the like. But then I asked myself, how many of these things do you actually need? And I began to cut down. I realized if you have one pair of black shoes, one pair of brown shoes, and maybe one fancy looking one, it is enough. How many clothes do you really need? So I began to cut down. You can have 2 bags and that is sufficient. So ask yourself, what are your weaknesses and what can you do about it? So weaknesses, once again, are things that are because of your decisions that you make or your personality, but they're things that you have control over, even if they're working negatively against you. So when you are writing down your weaknesses, please be very specific. It's not enough to say that, for instance, math is hard, or this, or my work is really hard, or I'm always on my phone. That is very broad. It's very broad and therefore very hairy. You need to be very specific. If math is difficult, you can't tell me you don't know how to add. So look at math and say, this topic in math is difficult. If it is you're always on your phone, you say, I am spending so much time on my phone in this area. And that is why when I give you the phone tracking tool, I ask you first, how much time are you spending on your phone in a day? And then the next question is, which are the top 3 apps that you're spending the most time on in a day? You need to be very specific, because if you're not specific, then it is impossible to solve what the problem is. Everyone is quiet. I hope we're on the same page. Remember, you can stop me and ask me a question if you feel.
Yes, we're on the same page.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so once again, we need to proactively work on our weaknesses. So after we have identified these weaknesses, you need to actually say, for this area, if I'm lazy, lazy in what? If I'm lazy in this area, identify where I'm lazy and say, okay, from today, I'm going to do A, B, C, and D to combat my laziness. Be proactive in it. If I'm loose-tongued, I'm the kind who always gossiping about people. Tell myself that, okay, that is my weakness. I'm always gossiping about people. The next time I'm hanging out with someone, I'm going to make sure I don't say anything negative about someone. That is a step already. So we need to work on them proactively. Once again, remember, your weaknesses are all in your area of control. They are not in your areas of influence. They are in your areas of control. Your struggle with math, surprise, surprise, not your teacher's fault, is in your area of control. You can do something about it. Your negative appraisals at work is within your area of control. The last concept is the threats. So once again, threats are things that are external to us that are working against us. So examples, your boss may not like you. Your boss may actually be a bad person, or your teacher may not like you. You cannot control them, remember? Either you can try to influence. Just a minute. Just a minute. Okay. Sorry, I'm expecting someone to come in. So yes, so you can either work on that by, so let's say your teacher doesn't like you, or you feel your boss doesn't like you. You can try to improve on your quality of work. That may influence them, but if it doesn't, then they are in your area of concern. My job pays terribly. What can you do about that? What can you do about that? Can you ask for a salary increment? Can you begin to look for another job? If you can't do either, then it becomes your area of concern. If they cannot increase your salary, then begin to look for another job. If you don't have the skills for another job, begin to work hard towards, begin to work hard towards getting the skills that you need to be either promoted at your workplace or getting another job. My school has a record of bad performance or cheating. You're already in this school, they have a record of cheating or it has a record of bad performance. People from your school never go to university, or your school, wherever you go, people say you cheat. What can you do about that? Can you leave the school? If you can't leave the school, can you make yourself different? Can you be the first student in that school to go to the university? That is within your area of control. My family is poor. I travel a lot for work. My spouse or my parents are not supportive. My house is too small for me to get space to study or to do something that I really want to do. In that, I put in bracket, watch Queen of Katwe, those who think their houses are too small to have space to do anything. It's a movie that is worth watching, very inspiring, not only for young people. So look at the threats that you have. And when you identify the threats, ask yourself, which ones can I influence? And if you can influence them, begin to try and influence them. And those that you cannot influence, for instance, if you're a child and your family is poor, how can you change the dynamics? Can you start making money? If you can't, then it is something within your area of concern. Work hard to make sure you don't worsen the poverty. You may not need a house help at home. Take over the housework at home so you're not spending on a house help. Work hard at school so your parents don't have to pay school fees twice for every class that you go to. So in other words, identify the threats, those things external to you that are trying to work against you. Determine if you can influence them. If you can influence them, do so. If you can't influence them, minimize the time you spend thinking about them or get away from it. Okay. I have talked about that. So really we're coming to the end now. For your homework, I've already said I'm going to need you to write down in each of your slices 10 things that are your weaknesses and 10 things that are your threats. And then you're going to write the action you're going to take to either minimize it if it is in your area of influence or area of control, and if it is in your area of concern, how you're going to begin to ignore it. I also want to encourage you to take time to read about temperaments, because our temperaments is who we are. We are born that way. There are things that are, I mean, you've seen it. Most of us have siblings. Most families in Uganda, we're not the only one at home. You're brought up in the same home, maybe even went to the same school, but you're very different. And that is not by chance. We are born in a certain way. Some of us are more go-getters and others are more laid-back people. And that is how we are naturally. So it would be good if you could take some time, read about your temperament, find out who you are, what are the strengths of your temperament and how can you build on them, and what are the weaknesses that you have, and how can you actually work on those weaknesses proactively. So there's a link that I'm going to share with you that you can do a temperament test to find out what temperament you are, but better still if you can read the book about your temperament. So if you can go to a bookshop, these books are available in Uganda as well, any one of these topics. The authors are Tim or Beverly Lahai. You can write down I'll give you a second there to write down their names. So they're available in the book in any bookshop in Kampala, and you can also find them being sold by the roadside. Read about your temperament and understand who you are and why you do the things you do the way you do them. When I did it, it was very eye-opening, so I really encourage you to do it, to read the book. Do the test, but also please read the book. Finally, cell phones. Can we have anyone share with us a minute? How has your cell phone tracking gone this week? Cell phone trackers, how has it gone? Moses, have you tracked your cell phone use?
Yeah, I tried, but I haven't been writing down. I was so lazy to print out that page, but I've just printed it this morning. So what I've been doing is that there's a setting like take a break. It has helped me a lot. Usually I take a break for hours, and then during that period I'm doing productive work. Because my phone doesn't allow me to do anything. Every time I try to open WhatsApp or Facebook, I get that notification, focus on something important.
Okay. And
it has helped me a lot.
that's really good to know. And also, I want you to keep track of how many times you try to open. You know, sometimes you may have set the block, which I hope many of you have done. But then the way this app works is that it also records how often you tried to open an app that was already closed, for instance. So please take note of that as well, because that is a habit that you want to break. So just because WhatsApp is closed, I found that happened to me when I had started tracking my phone usage. So the app is blocked, but many times I go to my phone and I try to open it. So the phone will tell me you try to open WhatsApp 50 times today, or even 100 times today. So keep track of that as well. Anyone wants to share how they have, thank you very much for that. Anyone wants to share how they have been able to apportion time that they saved from their cell phone to something else? Anybody? Okay, if there's no one sharing, Paula, do you want to share? Have you done that? Paula?
Yeah, I've been tracking my cell phone usage, and as I said in the previous session, I was trying to allocate more time to running.
How is it going?
Online studies. So I have noticed that now my most used I use a certain app for running and also a certain app for the online classes. So these apps are appearing more in my most used apps.
That's good to know. That's really good to know.
Yeah.
And so what I would encourage everyone to do again is to go back to their apps, look at the most used app that is not productive, and reduce the time by another 20%. So if you spent a whole hour on WhatsApp last week, you're going to reduce the time by 12 minutes this week. So go to the app, and the Stay Focused app can actually help you choose how much time you want to be on that app in a day or in a week. So please go and do that and continue the cell phone monitoring. We want to get to a point when we are not controlled by our phones. And then for people like Paula who have now identified a positive app that they're using most, go to the settings of the Stay Focused app and remove it from being logged. I don't know if that makes sense. So that when it is logging how much time you spend on your phone, it does not count the time you're spending on your running app and on your online learning app as part of it. In other words, it's counting that one separately. It will count it separate and not lump it with the useless spending of time on your phone. So go to the app and do that so that you can separate your positive energy from the negative activities. So I like the Stay Focused app because it helps you to actually do that. Okay, we've come to the end of today's session. If there's any question or anything anyone wants to add, please, you're welcome to share with us now. You can unmute yourself and speak. Okay, silence. I'm assuming by silence is nothing. So once again, you're welcome to get in touch with me by either email or through my phone.